I won't ask you to stand again, just in case. Are you happy? I saw these guys all sleeping. Is cyber physical systems, okay? And I'm going to talk about cyber physical systems, which in short I say as CPS, with respect to electric mobility. So essentially what the talk is going to be about is that how do you take decisions in an ecosystem where you have electric vehicles with a lot of other things together. Okay, we are going to talk about that. Would that be of interest to you? Are you all decision makers? Do you take decisions? What kind of decisions do you take? Simple decisions, complicated decisions? Simple decisions, right? Okay. So what we will going to talk about is that how to take decisions in the scheme of things, but decisions typically require a higher order of understanding before you take decisions, and that's where the decisions become complex, okay? So let me go over it. Okay. Now, before you get on the talk, I think it's very important to understand this slide, okay? It's probably has a lot of diagrams, but what you see on the left-hand side is essentially the source of power, right? And what you see on the right-hand side is the consumption point, right? So the source of power, you can get energy, power from power plants, windmills, renewables, whatever, right? That's where you are generating energy, power, right? And you will consume that in this scheme of things at a load point, which is electric vehicles here, right? So think of this automobile for that matter, right? Power is coming from somewhere, it is being consumed to power of this entire facility, right? Similarly, in the electric vehicle scheme of things, you need power to actually power the entire EV part of it, because you need energy to charge batteries, and those batteries will then go and run the vehicles, right? So that's the scheme of things here. In the between, what you see is what we call as charging stations, or the charging station infrastructure, because the charging station infrastructure helps you route power from the left to the right. And in fact, you can also do the reverse way, take from the right and give to the left. We'll talk about that later. Is this slide clear to you? Is it making sense? There's a source point, there's a load point, and there is a segment that helps you convert or move the flow of electrons from the source to the destination, right? Okay. Now, I will switch gears. If you have that slide clear in your mind, let's say you are probably running the operations of Amazon or Flipkart or Big Basket, right? You own a bunch of EVs now, right? And you are given the task of running the operations using the electric vehicles, right? Now, if you look at Amazon currently these days, normally most of these last mile delivery operators have committed to convert their fleets electric. Do you understand the rationale for it? Why are they so interested in converting their fleet to electric? Price? Fuel price? Okay. Any other motivation? We'll come to that. I think that's a good starting point. So essentially what is happening is that now today as an operations manager who manages fleets, I have a bunch of non-electric vehicles, and I want to convert that into electric vehicles, right? Now there are a lot of confusions I have in my mind, because so essentially when I'm running on a business operations and I have a bunch of EVs with me, I have to understand the first question as to how much charge I should give, how far should I give, and at what time should I give, so that my vehicles are ready by the time they have to leave for deliveries. Okay, it's a very tough question. So if you're doing for 2 vehicles, it's probably a very simple question. You don't need any algorithms for that. However, if you're doing for 10,000 vehicles, it's a very difficult task. Okay. Secondly, the diagram that you see at the center. So a lot of the operators, yes, they own EVs, but they may not own the charging stations with them. So what they may do is that they will say that I will rely on the public charging structure. Whatever the government has put in the city, I will probably use that to charge my vehicles. Now, what is the benefit of doing that? Benefit of doing this, that is that you are not buying the chargers, which means that you are saving on the cost of buying chargers and putting in a facility. But the demerit is that you have to now compete with the rest of the public for charging now, because everybody will use that charging structure, right? So the problem for the operator now is that how do I discover the charging stations and discover them when they're available for me to charge, because there's so much a competition for charging, right? Now let's say that's the picture that you see in the center. Can you please dim the lights on my face? It's okay, you did not adjust it. Now the third picture that you see is essentially so let's say as an operator, I say that, okay, I want to have full reliability in my operations. I want to have full predictability of my operations, which means that I will not bank on the public chargers, because I need to then struggle for charging time and space over there. So I'll buy those chargers. So I invest in buying the chargers. I deploy that in my facility, in my depot, okay? And if you look at fleet vehicles, they may probably be put to charge for some 4-5 hours a day, and the rest of the day, the vehicles are on the go. They're delivering packages in the city, isn't it? Now, when the vehicles are on the go, the chargers are sitting idle in my facility, which means that I've invested money in buying those chargers, but I can't utilize them for more than 4-5 hours in a day. Now, the question of the operator is that, how do I convert that cost center into a profit center? So what should I do so that when the chargers are sitting idle in my facility, I can make money out of it? Is it making sense to you? See, that's the journey of a business operator or operations manager. And these are some of the tough questions he faces when he has to transition from an old technology to a new technology. Okay, old technology in this case is non-EVs, new technology is EVs. So these are some of the critical decisions that he has to work on, okay? Now, look at the picture on the left-hand side, fully bottom left. Now, essentially, these are, let's say, the first 3-4 pain points. Now, given that my vehicle actually contains a battery, right? I use that battery for running the vehicle. Now, you can think it in a different way also. Given that my battery is a storehouse of power, right? I'm using that for running my vehicle, right? Normally, what I do is that if I require, let's say, if for completing my entire delivery operations, I require, let's say, 60 units of power, or 60% of my battery capacity to complete my operations. So just to take care of some uncertainties, I give them more power. So the battery, instead of having 60, will have 80. Some buffer is there, so that just in case the vehicle is stuck in traffic, or let's say due to some conditions I consume more energy, I have the necessary power to get back to my depot, because I don't want to charge on the go. So that buffer is there. Now the question the operator may ask is that, if I plan my entire operations really well, this 20% is actually extra charge I'm giving. So if I have planned my operation well, I'll anyways not be using it. So how can I make money out of that? Saying that, can I now sell that power back to the grid and make some money for myself? Is it making sense? So essentially, let's say my batteries of 100 units. I just require 60 units for my business operations to deliver packages where I need. That 20 to 40% is buffer for me. And I have a strong intuition that if I plan my operations well, I will just consume 60. 40 will always be with me. So out of 40, can I just sell some power to the grid back again, from which I have bought power to charge my vehicle, and make some money from it? Yeah. So what I'm saying is that you have that buffer of 40 units. You can decide, you want to sell 10 units, 20 units, 30 units, 40 units, whatever. Isn't it? Is it making sense to you? These are what we call as value-added operations for the operator. Okay. However, while doing this entire scheme of things, we face with what we call as mixed fleets. So essentially, when this transition journey is happening, let's say I'm Amazon, I'm a Flipkart, I'm a Big Basket. I have, let's say, 1,000 vehicles with me. So if today you come as a consultant, if as a McKinsey you come to me and tell me that I'm going to modify your entire operation, modernize your entire operations, and I will convert the entire fleet in electric. But the problem for me is that I already have 100 non-electric vehicles with me. I cannot throw that overnight and bring 1,000 new electric vehicles. So I will do it over time. So what I'll do is that in the first 6 months, I'll just electrify 5% of our fleet. So out of 1,000 vehicles, only 50 vehicles I'll move to electric. Remaining vehicles will still be non-electric. Then another 6 months down the line, again change another 5% of fleet to electric. So I'll do that progressively over a period of time, and that entire transition may take me 4 to 5 years. So I'll do it in a stage-by-stage process. So what happens is that when I run an operations, I actually have two kinds of vehicle to deal with. One is electric vehicle and second is a non-electric vehicle. So it becomes even more difficult operational question for me when I have to plan my operations. Okay. Is it making sense for you? She is very confused. Is it making sense to you? Is it making sense? You just nodded just like that. Right? Who are the guys sleeping? Is it making sense to you? Huh? Is it making sense? What is making sense here to you? So that is making, so he's saying that what is making sense to me is essentially what's the difference between electric and non-electric. Is this right in that? He sounds very confident. What is making sense to you? Yeah, so handling, so essentially the meat here is that how do you handle different kinds of vehicle? Here in this case, two different kinds of vehicle when you're planning the entire transition journey. Because these are some of the very critical questions that you need to answer because you have to put money into it. Okay. So with this, I am just setting the context to what I'm going to speak now. Okay. And by the way, the first fundamental question is that why is electric vehicle so attractive? Why are all last mile operators, whether the Amazons, Flipkarts, everybody's committing that we'll convert 100% of our fleet to electric in the next, by 2030. Why it's so? What is motivating them? Pardon? Lower operational cost. How is it that? You are right in using that term, lower operational cost. But exactly how? How will you get lower operational cost? Electricity is cheaper, okay. Anything else? Pardon? Tax exemptions, okay. Anything else? This side is very quiet. Fuel prices, somebody has said already, okay. So you just keep this analogy in mind, okay. It'll make sense to you, okay. So you all have bikes, scooters. So what is the mileage? So you fill 1 liter of petrol in your vehicle. How much mileage do you get? 50, 60, 70? 50? 35 to 40. Okay, it'll be difficult for me to calculate 35, I'll take 50. Okay, so 1 liter of petrol, you're getting 50 kilometers of range, okay. So essentially, if you convert that to, in a mota sense, what will happen is that 1 liter of petrol is equivalent to carrying a 10 kilowatt hour of battery with you, if you do the fuel conversion in joules, okay? So the amount of energy that 1 liter of petrol gives you is equivalent to the amount of energy that a 10 kilowatt hour battery will give you. So assume that, now imagine that the petrol bike that you're driving, it has like a 10 kilowatt battery with you, and with that you're getting 50 kilometers, okay? Keep in mind, okay. Now, let's say you move to electric scooter, actual electric scooter, okay. You buy the Aethers or any other model, so they have a small battery pack, 2 kilowatts, 3 kilowatts, okay, 2 kilowatts battery. And what's the range they claim is probably 100 kilometers, 120 kilometers, but on road you'll get some 80 kilometers or 70 kilometers. So a 2 kilowatt hour battery of Aethers gives you around 80 kilometers. So 1 kilowatt hour gives you how much? 40. So an actual EV scooter, 1 kilowatt of energy, battery pack gives you 40 kilometers. Go back to your petrol vehicle. I told you that if you burn 1 liter of petrol, which is equal to a 10 kilowatt hour battery, it gives you 50 kilometers. So 1 kilowatt hour would give you 5 kilometers. So this is the basic difference. So essentially, if you're actually using electric scooter, the efficiency of that vehicle is more because by burning energy of 1 kilowatt hour, you are getting 40 kilometers of range. And if you compare that to a petrol scooter or a bike, 1 kilowatt hour is giving you just 5 kilometers range. So this machine, the EV, is essentially a far, far, far efficient machine. And that is the real advantage. That is making business sense for people. So if you talk to a lot of the delivery companies that deliver packages, I'll quote the example from Flipkart. They actually, not Flipkart, but Big Basket, they're a 100% EV last mile company, okay? And they actually are saving 5 rupees per package. Now, if 5 rupees per package may sound very simple to you, but look at the number of deliveries they do. So probably for every delivery, they will drop around 30 packages. And if per package they are saving 5 rupees, for every order for entire operations of one vehicle, they are saving 13 to 5 rupees. And they will be operating some 1,000 such vehicles. So at the scale number, they are actually saving a lot of money. So that is why it is making business sense for people to actually move to electric vehicles. Okay? You keep that example in mind. Will you remember that? So what is the conversion? So basically 1 liter of petrol is equivalent to how much kilowatt hour battery? 10. You remember that. Okay. Okay. So I've set the context here. Again, I don't have time till 12 was given to me. So I will just wrap up in another 10 minutes. I hope you don't feel sorry for it. But keep that in mind because this basically lies the foundation of why electric vehicle technology is gaining traction, because purely from a operations, from a cost point of view, and costs come from first of all, the vehicle is efficient. Secondly, the cost of energy or electricity is far cheaper than what you pay for petrol prices. Okay, it is less subject to variations of the markets at this point of time. Given that the EV vehicle has far fewer components, maintenance costs go down, and so on and so forth. Okay. So, okay. So I'll talk about this particular topic of essentially. So this is a operations problem that I'll talk about. And this can be a little bit complicated to understand, but you'll get it because I have put it in a very simple way, okay? So think that we are sitting in this building, okay? We are in BNMIT, okay? And so the building that you see is this BNMIT campus, right? And we are sitting in an air-conditioned room here, right? So so the equivalent term is called HVAC operations, heating, ventilation, and cooling systems. So that's the HVAC running, okay? And the literature, we know very well that, and this report in literature, that 50 to 60% of the energy that you buy, 50 to 60% of the energy goes in powering HVAC operations. So it's HVACs, your cooling and heating systems actually consume a majority of the energy. Okay, so when you are sitting in this comfortable room here, keep in mind that you actually are selling 50 to 60% of the net inflow of energy in trying to cool the entire room. Okay, so that's well-reported literature. Now think it from a large campus point of view. Let's say a very large IT campus, a very large university campus. And if 50 to 60% of the money is just gone for the cooling and heating systems, it's a huge money that actually goes in powering those operations. Okay. Now for longs, operators knew how to manage or modulate HVAC control points so that I can make the best use of it. Now given that electric vehicles are coming in, you find electric vehicle charges in the parking lots of the companies, right? I'm sure BNMIT, if you have a parking lot, some of the charges may be there. And any large tech parks you go, you will find electric vehicle charges in those tech parks, okay? Now, again, studies have shown that around 25% of the load or the entire energy flow goes in EV charging, okay? So now the operator is confused. So now for the operator, see, he's buying energy from the grid, okay? From the top, he's buying energy. Let's say he buys 100 units. He spends around 50 to 60 units to power HVAC operations, and remaining 25 to 30 units goes in powering EV charging, right? And the tricky part for him is that both of these loads actually overlap in time, because when you enter office, let's say people start coming to office at 9 in the morning, right? So at that point, the HVAC will start cooling the system, so which means the power consumption of HVAC goes up. And they'll also come and park their car, and they will put the car to charging. So again, the EV charging system is also picking up. So these two systems, very dominant systems, whose usage actually overlaps in time. So for the operator, it is very difficult to multiplex them. And what do I do my multiplexing? So the operator could have said that, hey, maybe you don't need EV charging now, let me shut it off, I'll just give you cooling. Or hey, let me not switch on the cooling system, I'll just give you charging. Now it is very difficult for the operator because he needs to give both the services at the same time. Because when people enter the office premises, he needs to cool the building or the facility. And at the same time, he has to ensure that the electric vehicle that he has parked for charging gets the right amount of charge by the time he leaves. Okay, so it's very difficult to multiplex both the systems. And at the same time, he has to ensure that he doesn't exceed the contract that he has taken from the grid. So annually or monthly or daily, he may probably consume some hundreds of power from the grid. So as long as he is between that contract limit, he is not penalized. But if he overshoots, the penalty is very high. So now, for the building operator, the question is that how can he manage two dominant power systems? One is the HVAC system, one is the EV charging system, without compromising on the comfort on the HVAC side, without compromising on the SOC levels on the EV charging side, and yet not exceeding the power drawn from the grid. So there are three systems involved: grid, HVAC, charging, operate in the center, and he has to take a decision so that he's able to balance the objectives or the goals across these three systems. Okay. I hope the problem is clear, right? Now what do we do about it? So I say now here, so here what we are proposing, this is a solution. So what we are saying is that while you can draw power from the grid and charge your vehicles, given that, so normally we are trying to use the consumer's profile to actually take some smart decisions. So when somebody comes to the office premises and parks the vehicle and puts it for charging, he will probably come in the 9 in the morning and leave by 5. And he may probably come with a charge of 50%, he wants a charge of, he may want to go to the charge level 70 or 80%. So 20 units of charge requires. Now, if I know that when he'll leave, I can actually spread his charging duration. So rather than giving charge in the next 1 hour, I can actually give him charge over the next 8 hours, because the expectation is to get only 20% additional charge. And anyways, the vehicle will be parked for the remaining 8 hours in the facility. So why push the charge as fast as possible, stagger the charge over a period of 8 hours, okay? Now, if you are able to do that, if you are able to use that profile of the consumer, the question that you're asking is that, while we pull power from the grid and give it to the charging station for charging the vehicles, can we also take power from the vehicles and charge the HVAC from it? Okay. So normally, HVAC is drawing power from the grid. Okay. Now, when both the systems are at peak utilization levels, there's a chance of exceeding it. So at the point when we are able to exceed the total contract levels from the grid, the proposition here is that why can't we take charge from the EV side of things and give it to the HVAC for that momentary period? So in that way, you don't exceed the grid contract levels. You use the ambient storage that you have on the facility, charge the HVAC operations, and given that you know the consumer profile of the HVAC user, EV user, you can actually charge it back again by the time he leaves. Okay, so this is the proposition that we are proposing here. So this is the backflow. So essentially what we want to charge the EVs and we want to also very systematically discharge the EVs and power it for HVAC operations, okay. Now for that, we have built a decision logic for it, of course. So the basic research question that we are trying to solve here is that, how do I minimize the building energy cost through a joint control of EV HVAC operations, okay? Now there are different types of control logics. You can use a very simple rule-based controller wherein you can say that, hey, forget about what's happening, I will set the HVAC to only this degree Celsius, charging it that degree Celsius, okay? There are also sophisticated algorithms like MPC, model predictive control, which tries to say that, okay, if your future state is going to look like this, what action should I take now? But again, it's a very costly affair. So what we have done is that we have come up with a different type of controller which uses what we call as reinforcement learning, okay? Have you heard of the reinforcement learning, RL? Okay. So simply what it does is that it is a controller that if you have data, operational data with you, you can use that data to train policies, learn policies. And what are policies here? Policy decisions, okay? So, and it uses some form of trial and error to learn that. For example, what is reinforcement here? So let's say if you are performing well in class, I may probably take you out for outing, okay? I'll say, oh, this entire batch is doing really well, I'll take you out for a excursion, right? That's positive reinforcement. I'm giving you a reward for what you're doing. However, if you don't study well in class, I'll say that I'll penalize marks from this subject, that subject. So I'm giving a penalty for it. So what happens, the controller is designed that way. So if the controller takes a correct decision, the logic tries to reward it. If the algorithm is taking a bad decision, the controller will try to penalize it. And with that type of trial and error, with data, you can actually make the controller learn some good policies. Okay, so we have built that, and we have used to solve that problem here. Again, this is all the controller design. I'll show you one result here, okay? I'll just show you one result here. Now, what is the value do we bring here, okay? Now, if you look at, so the best part of the algorithm is that it scales really well as the system grows in complexity. So if you look at the bottom line, I have plotted number of EVs here, okay? So number of EVs goes from 5 vehicles to 20, 25 vehicles to all the way to 100 vehicles, okay? Now what we are saying is, and let's say your control time stake is one hour. So every 1 hour you try to reset the HVAC control point, and every 1 year you try to reset the charging points, okay? So normally HVAC controls are normally set in 1 hour durations, okay? So the black dotted line is basically the control time set. So every 60 minutes you will take some control decisions, okay? Now, if you use the MPC controller, which is the blue line here, okay? So as you see, the MPC controller is the state of the art. You cannot beat it because it has all the information, and given, if you have all the information, you will do the best, you can take the best decision. However, the demerit is that as the system scales, the controller takes more time to give you a decision. So if you look at the blue line, initially, when the scale is small, 5 vehicles, 10 vehicles, the solution time, run time is very small. But as soon as you touch 75 vehicles, 100 vehicles, the time to compute a decision is probably 1.5 hours, 2 hours. And it doesn't make sense to me because I need to take a decision every 60 minutes. So if I'm getting a decision beyond 60 minutes, I cannot apply the decision. So at that point of time, the controllers that are out over there actually have no use. And that's where I think the RL-driven controller that we have come up with, which essentially is this yellow line that you see, even as the system scales, it is able to give you decisions extremely fast. Okay, and that's where the usefulness comes. So what we're claiming here is that we are not saying that we have come with a the best controller in the world. What we're saying is that, yes, MPC still is the best controller because the decision accuracy is very high, but as the system scales to large levels, you cannot really use it. And that is where the RL-based controller can come in, wherein when the scale of the system goes very high, you can use this controller to augment what the decision an MPC controller will give you. Okay, so that's the claim we are making here. So I think I will stop here because I think organizers are already out of time. If I had given you half an hour more, probably I told you something more interesting stories about it. But I think this is the moral of the story. So what we are trying to say here is, so I think this is my final slide here. So essentially the problem that we are trying to solve is that we want to reduce the building energy cost in the presence of two dominant loads. One is the HVAC load and second the EV charging load. The key idea is that how can we use EVs as DERs, which is distributed energy resources, because they store power. So how can I use that power for much more, for interesting applications here, okay? So the research problem is that how do I minimize the building energy cost through joint control of both the HVAC and EV charging. And the solution that we have come up with is basically a multi-agent reinforcement learning approach to do this joint control, okay? And as I said, the benefit of this approach is that, yes, we don't beat the state of the art in accuracy, but we do beat the state of the art in runtime, which means that we encourage you to use the state of the art algorithm if the system scale is small. However, a very large system scale, this type of approach can actually give you better results. Okay, so with that, I will conclude. If you have any quick questions for me, you can probably post to me. Otherwise, we can close the session. Any quick questions? This guy. No questions, you're fully clear. I did not explain even 80% of the work. How are you clear? What is the problem? What is the problem I'm solving? EVs is a problem, it's a universal problem. But what is the exact problem I'm solving? Managing problem solver, or what? Yeah, he is saying from the side, right? Okay. So what is the problem I'm solving? Just let's summarize. What is the problem I'm solving? Let me turn off this slide. What is the problem I'm solving? Manage. Okay. Balance or manage power supply between HVAC and EV systems. Okay. Why is it an important problem? Okay, fine. And finally, what solution did we come up with? Let me go that side. Hold on. What was the solution? Using power. That's the approach. Okay, that's the approach. What's the technical solution we came up with? I think the approach is fine. That let's take power from the EVs and give it to the HVAC side. But what is the actual technical solution we came up with? How did we make that work? That's all in the approach, okay. But what technical algorithm powers that up? So we came up with a new control design, which is based on reinforcement learning to augment state-of-the-art controllers, right? Okay, fine. So with this, let me conclude. I hope you are extremely clear about what I spoke. If you have any more questions, do get in touch with me. And with that, let me conclude. Over to our organizers, please. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for being a part of this conference and giving the keynote address today. Thank you very much. Can we have another round of applause for Dr. Prasant Misra ji? Thank you, sir. With that, we conclude today's inaugural and the keynote address. Now you can take your break. All the students, this is for the students, you may take your break, the lunch break, and the classes will resume at 1:15 as usual. And for the delegates, you have a small short break where you can have a cup of coffee or a tea in the canteen area where the breakfast was served, and you can get back to the technical sessions which is already given to you in the timetable. Thank you very much. See you all in the technical session.